Welcome back, guys. I just bought myself a brand new 2023 KTM 450 XCF. I'm going to go out and take it for a quick spin so that we can get the 1 hour service interval done. And then I'm going to bring it into the workshop and we're going to do everything on the list for a 1 hour service. Stick around. This was its maiden journey, guys. I had a blast. I needed to find somewhere where I could ride it for a little bit longer than a half an hour because you're supposed to change the oil after its first 1 hour of interval. So it now has 1.1 hours on it. I wasn't really looking for mud, but yeah, we found mud, that's for sure. And I'll tell you what, guys, this thing rips, and super impressed with how it goes as far as like a woods bike and in the woods. So I rode real light trails, probably didn't get much more than fifth gear, just in a couple spots, but that was, you know, keeping the RPMs down really low. That was within like an open field. So now I got to go home and clean it up and work on doing its first service. But yeah, guys, this thing went awesome. This is a 2023, obviously KTM. It's the XCF, which the difference between this and the XS race bike is that the XC has the factory installed handguards and comes with a 18-inch rear wheel versus the SX has a 19-inch wheel. And I can't remember, oh, it's got the bigger gas tank too. This bike has traction control, it's got a quick shifter, it's got 2 map settings that you can adjust, and it also has like a hole shot device on it. So you do something with programming these two, you press them, then you hold the throttle pinned wide open, and then when you let out on the clutch, is how I understand it, that the throttle is progressively let out, and it works in conjunction with your traction control. And then once you hit second gear, if you wanted to, you could just hold the throttle right pinned. You don't have to use the clutch at all, and then you just pull up on the shifter all the way up into fifth gear. This has the air forks, so there's no springs in this. And with this model, all the controls for the suspension and the dampening, they're all toolless. You can do everything by hand without any tools. So kind of kills me to see it this muddy, because I hate mud riding, guys. But wow, what a fun bike this was. I was going to be kind of concerned because this is a 450 in the woods, never even hinted of stalling. I could not be any happier. And my wife's now inherited my 350 that she loves, so now she's on my 350 KTM, and that one's the SX race bike. But that one already has the handguards installed, so now all I got to do is just find a nice oversized tank for hers, and it'll be basically the XC model. All right, guys, I just got back, and we'll get it unloaded and get it cleaned up. There we go. You can see right here, guys, it's got 1.1 hours on it right now. And you're supposed to change the oil and do a full service on it after 1 hour, which is a whole checklist, which is like a valve adjustment, all kinds of things that you're supposed to do. I wanted to ride it really careful, and you're not supposed to rev it over 7,000 RPMs for the initial break-in. So I was real careful that I varied the RPMs. I didn't string it out in any gear. I never went full throttle with it, and I just basically drove it gentle and varied the load on the bike. But obviously, as you can see, I've worked the suspension, lugged it down, riding it through mud and stuff like that. So it should be a good break-in period. And now I'm going to clean it up and get it in the workshop and do all the work to it that we need to do, which includes an oil change, filter, valve check, and I don't know how to do it for this bike. I think we got to probably pull the seat, pull the tank, pull the shrouds. There's quite a bit to it. So one of the other differences that I mentioned roadside that I forgot between the XS model and the XC model is the XS, which is the race bike, doesn't have a kickstand, and the XC does. But essentially it's the same motor, it's the same internals, compression, everything. The motor's the same. It's just those few subtle differences that have been done to it. And we'll try to get all the mud off it so we don't drag it into the workshop. And I like to keep my stuff clean anyways. I don't like to have all my stuff get muddy and leave it sitting for days. I like to clean it up. I don't even like to get it muddy in general, let alone have it get muddy and set. Now I'll share a little story with you guys, because I wasn't originally going to go out and buy a brand new bike. What I was doing is I was looking on Marketplace, because I had just bought myself a new to me off Marketplace 2011 KTM 350 XCF, which is the race bike. Now that 350 has fuel injection, it's electric start. So somebody had put hand guards on it already, and I put a kickstand on it. And it's just in super good shape. I'll put a link to a video if you want to check it out of when I picked it up. So my wife and I went dirt bike riding for our first trip, and she took her XR100 that I built for her, and I said, well, try my bike out, see what you think. And she just absolutely fell in love with it. The suspension, super plush. She just was real happy with it. But it was a little tall, so I would have to lower it, and put a lowering kit in it. So I started looking on Marketplace for used 350 KTMs, you know, with those features, electric start, fuel injected, all that stuff, right? Well, I couldn't really find anything, and the ones that I were finding that were fairly new were super expensive. So just out of curiosity, I started reaching out to some dealers. The best KTM dealer that we have around us, with probably the biggest selection, is in New Hampshire. I'm in Maine, and it's a place called Freedom Cycles. And I've bought other bikes from them in the past, so I've already had an experience dealing with them. And the great thing about buying stuff in New Hampshire versus Maine, they tax you like crazy on everything. Sales tax, I mean, you name it. Maine is like, tax you for everything. If they could tax you to breathe, they probably would. But New Hampshire doesn't have sales tax. I called up down there, and they gave me a price out the door. The out the door price, they didn't have a 350, but they had a 450, which is this. And this is the XC model, which not only does it cost more, it also has a lot better, higher resale value as well, because the XC has a lot of more comfort things, like, you know, like the kickstand and the bigger tank and the hand guards and the things that I had mentioned. They priced it out for me, and it was a super good deal that I couldn't pass it up. Such a good deal, and again, brand new, 0 hours, and it was such a good deal. I can't even buy a used one of these on Marketplace for what I can buy this for. Granted, that's without the sales tax, right? So if I can't even buy one of these on Marketplace, you know, with around 20 hours, it said to me, yeah, I need to pull the trigger on this. Although I didn't want to spend the amount of money that I spent for this, like I said, it was a deal that I just really couldn't pass up. And this here is the 2011 bike that I was telling you guys about that now my wife has just inherited. She absolutely loves this bike. Like I said, this thing, super comfortable, super plush. Just replaced the rear spring in that to go along with my weight. Hopefully it works okay for her. And dialed in the suspension. It's still too tall, so I've ordered a lowering kit for that. So this is going to be an upcoming video. Again, this is a 2011. That'll be fun, doing the lowering kit on this, and then we'll have two super reliable bikes. I have a pressure washer. I'm just not a big fan because I think it has a tendency to, one, inject a bunch of water into some of the suspension components, and it can also inject mud into them too, which, I mean, I guess that's fine if you're a race team or whatever and you're taking all that stuff apart all the time, but, you know, I don't take my stuff apart any more than I have to. Obviously, maintain it and keep it good, but aside from that, I don't really do any more than I have to or am required to do. So now we've got it up on the lift, and it's quite an extensive process of the things that we got to do to this. I'll show you. So everything in this 1 hour column that's got a circle on it is what we got to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is take off the seat and everything else that is going to get us to the valve system. And I'm going to be making notes as we do this on a piece of paper because I'm keeping a maintenance log. Now, a maintenance log is great to have, especially for you and especially when you go to sell the bike for the person buying it, because they know that the work was done and they have a parameter to go by. So when I do the valve clearances, I'm going to actually note down what each valve clearance actually is, and then when it comes to the next interval of valve clearance, which I think is at 15 hours, we'll take another reading then. Maybe it won't need an adjustment, and we'll see how close in adjustment they're actually staying. So we'll start by taking off the seat. That's good and tight. Not sure which way. There we go. Goes forward. So I can already see a couple things that we're going to need to work on or be vigilant about when we do a wash on it. Look, so that's filled up with water, and there's just a lot of water in here. So I'll know next time that I'm going to need to take the seat off and blow all this out with compressed air, because this is going to be a problem here. This may even be a charging port. I don't know. I'll have to look into it a little bit. I'm going to disconnect the battery though, because it would be a terrible thing if you got the oil out of it and you hit the starter by accident or something triggers it. So yeah, guys, look at that. That's got a NOCO connector charger port on it. Well, isn't that something? Well, that's nice. That makes it handy. Should only be a couple bolts. I think the shrouds probably are similar to the 2011. Probably the shrouds come right off with the tank, I would think. I would imagine that the valve adjustment is spot on, but I'm doing it because the manual says to do it, and it's a brand new bike, and I don't know enough about it to be able to cut a shortcut to say that it's not necessary. That way we will know that it's been done. I don't think that I had to take the plastics off, but I did, just because it was fitting really tight, and apparently that's just probably how it comes apart. But now I'm going to take off the fuel connections. I think there's a quick disconnect down in here on this other side. Then we can get this tank out of here. Now we got to pull off this fitting here. And the bike comes with what's called like a wash kit, and that allows you to unplug this and then cap both ends so you don't get any dirt and debris in it. I'll tell you what, guys, KTM really thinks of everything. The more I look at this bike and the more I look at stuff, the more impressed I am. Like, there's so many of the fasteners that actually have the torque value written on them because they know that you're going to be taking it apart, and it's going to save you a step from having to look it up in the manual. Just like this wash kit that comes with the bike, and it comes with spare fuel filters and you name it. Just really well thought out. So you put the O-ring to the outside of this. I put a little bit of grease on it, and the trick to inserting it is not to push this button back. Just put it together, push it straight in, and then it will seal. Remember how I told you that it's just amazing some of the things that this bike has with like the torque values written on parts? It's got like UPC codes written everywhere. It's got another UPC code written over there. They're all over the bike. I mean, watch how awesome this is, guys. Watch this. So I'll take a screenshot of that UPC code, show options, then we'll search the web. That's the UPC code on the forklift sticker set. So it literally makes it easy for you to figure out what you need for a part, because these are literally everywhere all over the bike. So you could reorder it. That sticker set's $32. And those UPC codes are everywhere. They're attached all over the bike. All kinds of pieces and parts have those. It's got them on the radiators. It's got them on the throttle cables. Pretty amazing, some of the stuff that they've done, the advancements in dirt bikes and how far they've come. Pull off this little crankcase breather. Get that out of there. I have to put a little ratchet on it. Oh, those are tighter than I thought they'd be. That's pretty crazy. These valve covers only have 2 screws
that hold the valve cover on. So that's pretty simple. Pull these bolts out and we'll pull off the valve cover. And that popped right off nice and easy. Just so you can see it a lot easier, I've highlighted in yellow everything that we need to do for this 1 hour service. So the intake is 0.10 to 0.15 and the exhaust is 0.12 to 0.17. I don't know if you can see this, but right here in front of that is a dot. I've got that dot up, and I obtained that by bringing this up into the top gear and then just taking the tire and turning it forward and bumping it until this rotated up to the top. They appear that it's probably on the compression stroke. I'll try it and we'll see. If not, I might have to bring it down another revolution to get it onto the compression stroke. But this would be the exhaust side. This would be the intake side. So the intake is 0.10 to 0.15. There's 0.10 right there. Let's try that. Yeah, that fits. So let's do 0.12. Let's try that. Nope. So a 0.12 won't fit in there. So these valves are automatically already kind of on the tight side of the clearance. Let me check the exhaust. The exhaust, we can use this one, 0.12. Okay, yeah, I can fit that in there. That's good. So the exhaust is 0.12 to 0.17. Let's see if we can go a little bit higher on this side. Let's try a 0.15. We can get a 0.15 in there. Let me go get a piece of paper so we can jot down these numbers. Intake left, intake right, exhaust left, exhaust right. That's going to be as you're sitting on the bike. So exhaust left, we'll check it again. 0.15. We can fit that in there. I don't believe we'll be able to get a 0.17 in there, but let's try it. Nope. Okay, so that's perfect. 152 on the exhaust. That's right in the middle range. Okay, so exhaust left, 0.152 millimeter. Now we'll do intake left. We'll check it again. And intake is 0.10 to 0.15. We got a 0.15 right here. Let's try that one. Nope, we can't get that in there. So 0.102. Let's see for the left intake. Okay, 102 easily fit. Guess just got to be super careful to make sure that you don't have two of these stacked together by accident. Let's try out 0.12. I'd really love for this to fit in that intake. And it's super tight. No, the 127 will fit, but it definitely is super tight. We can't call it 1.2. We're gonna have to call it 0.10, which is the low side, meaning that it's a little tight, and it's gonna continue to get tighter. 0.102 is intake left. Now we'll do the intake and exhaust right. So we got the desired clearance over here on the right intake. We're at 127. We can be 010 to 015. So this is perfect right in the middle. I just wish the left side was that good, but oh well. Intake right, 0.127 millimeter. Now we'll check the exhaust. Well, we got the 1.2 in our hand. We'll check that. Yep, that fit in there nicely. Now we'll try a 1.5. Yep, and there we go. 0.152 millimeters. Geez, the only one that's tight is that intake left, but it's in spec. We'll just have to keep an eye on it, I guess. I'd rather have it be an intake valve that's tight versus an exhaust. The intake valves won't burn. The exhaust valves will. A tight intake valve will pretty much just make you a little bit low on power. You won't get as much air into the motor. I'm going to be doing the first oil change. This is everything you're going to need to do it. A couple quarts of oil, 13 millimeter socket, 8 millimeter socket, something to drive the sockets, oil filter. This is the part number, torque wrench, and a drain pan. And here are all the torque values. And because this is the first ever oil change I've done on this bike, I'm going to be filtering it through a paint filter so I can see if there's any small particles or see if there's any issues with the motor. I doubt there is, but I'm just doing it out of curiosity because this is the first time I've ever experimented with a brand new bike and doing this, so we will find out. And this drain plug is also magnetic, so that'll tell a story as well. Now we'll take out the filter screen, and I'll show you guys all the metal particles when we're done. We'll take a look at it up close and see just what to expect on all the parts, the filter. Then we'll take off this one, also 13 millimeter. We'll slide our bucket over a little bit further, and we'll remove the oil filter cap. These are on real light. And we'll pull the filter out. I've also chosen to disconnect one of the leads on the battery just to prevent any possibility of the starter getting hit. Not that it would, but it just makes me feel better. And I'm leaning the bike at a slight angle because everything is to the left of this bike to help everything drain out. Just out of curiosity, because I'm naturally just a curious person, let's see what 1.1 hours looks like on a brand new KTM 450 XCF. Now this is the drain plug, and it's magnetic, and it definitely has some black sediment on it. Let's see, but nothing heavy on here. It's all super fine material. There's nothing on this that is really thick. It's almost like a black paste. I don't see anything that's jumping out at me on the screen. So there's like a little dark speck right there. And another one. Nope. Inside of this cap, it's blue. It's got some sort of blue material, so that's probably, my guess would be an assembly lube that's in there. So nothing overly large in here. Let's look inside the oil. Oh yeah, inside the oil has some pieces though. There's a couple things here. So here's a piece of metal. It's probably the biggest piece I found so far right here. So, oh, wait a minute. So that's blue. Is it magnetic? Or is that a bug? No, it's magnetic. So that's a piece of something. That's a piece of metal. And there's just a really couple really fine pieces of metal at the bottom. Really tiny though. Almost like the size of a pinhead. Probably maybe 15 pieces down in there. Really small. So that could be a number of things. That could be, you know, pieces of clutch, or, you know, valve components. Could be just anything. I'm not concerned about it, not even a little bit. What is inside an oil filter? Let's find out. Again, guys, I'm just doing this because I'm curious. I don't suspect that there's any problems, but I mean, you gotta admit, this is kind of cool to see how much garbage and stuff is going to be inside of a brand new motor, right? Okay, so it's going to be probably having particles on the inside of this material. Wow, guys, super clean. Okay, no, it's going to be on the outside, if there's anything at all. So, very fine particles. Can you see that kind of that sheen on that? Let me see if I can wipe some of it. I mean, it's so fine, guys. It's super fine. Maybe the most I've seen, guys, is right here. See that? It's almost like a paste. But, you know, the filter's doing what it's supposed to do, guys. We want to see stuff in here. We'll start putting all this stuff back together again now.
A lot of the videos that I see on the internet where people are changing their oil, they're not actually following the manufacturer's recommendations. Now, as you can see right here, I've leaned the bike over at an angle, and I actually dumped oil in that cavity where the filter goes, because that's what the manual says that you're supposed to do. And now, as an added measure, I'm adding a little bit of oil to the filter as well. And I think what that does is that just makes sure that that cavity is filled with oil, so that the oil pump isn't sucking up a bunch of air in the very beginning and then the motor is running dry. But this is per the manufacturer's instructions, is to dump that oil in the cavity, and I don't see a lot of people doing it. Now I'm going to put on the cap. I'll snug everything down for right now, just so that we don't have any leaks, and then I'll go back through after we're all said and done with a torque wrench and be sure to torque all the fasteners. Now we're just straightening the bike back up, making it completely vertical. Takes a little over a quart, so I'm dumping in a full quart. Now I'm opening up my second quart.
So now we're going to torque the drain bolt, and the oil drain bolt is at 14.8 foot-pounds. Wow. Now we'll tighten the filter screen, and that is at 11.1 foot-pounds. Then the plug underneath, same torque, 11.1. Then the oil filler cap, 7.4 pounds.
Then I just go through afterwards and put a torque wrench on everything. Now, if your torque wrench happens to read in inch pounds, but the manual is giving you foot pounds, just take that number and multiply it times 12, and that'll give you inch pounds. So if it calls for 12 foot pounds, just multiply 12 foot pounds times 12. That's 144. That'd be 144 inch pounds. And that's all there is to it, guys. If you want to hear this run, you're going to have to tune into the channel to hear it. We're going to be taking it out in an upcoming episode. My wife and I are going to go riding, and you'll be able to hear it, see it. And also be sure to tune into the channel real soon, guys, because now my wife's inherited my 2011 KTM 350, and we're putting a lowering link in this. We're going to try to get this bike to sit 4 inches lower than factory, and I'll show you all the things that I had to do to get it done so that hopefully she can flat foot it. These lowering links are one of them. I'll see you guys soon in the next one. Take care. See ya.